Good evening.
Evening.
I call to order the joint public hearing with Town Council and Planning Commission, regular session, Cape Charles Civic Center, 500 Tazewell Avenue, May 3rd, 2022. Roll call, please.
Grossman present.
Holloway present.
Buda present.
McCoy present.
D'Amico present.
Strew present.
We have a quorum. Mr. Mayor?
Did I get a roll call for council?
Bennett present. Bucko is present.
O'Brien present.
Holloway present.
Grossman present.
Let me know we've established before.
We will now have, we'll all stand for a moment of silence followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Join me in the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. Does anyone object to the approval of the consent agenda? Hearing no objection, the consent agenda will be taken by unanimous consent. The Cape Charles Planning Commission will hold a joint public hearing with Town Council on Tuesday, May 3rd at 6 p.m. in the Cape Charles Civic Center, 500 Tazewell Avenue, to receive comment on the following applications. A zoning text amendment 2022-01 application from the Town of Cape Charles to amend Section 4.2, Boleg J, accessory dwelling units, and Section 2.9, definitions associated with accessory dwelling units. B, a zoning map amendment 2022-01 application from Cape Charles Ventures, LLC, to conditionally rezone 238 Randolph Avenue, tax map number 83A3-1-625A, from residential 1 to commercial 1, with proffers to limit the commercial activity of said proposed rezoning. And C, a conditional use permit 2022-01 application from Cynthia, Emrich, and Charles Van Dyke at 420 Randolph Avenue for accessory dwelling unit permit after the fact. At this time, we will hear from the interim zoning administrator on the joint public on zoning text amendment 2022-01 accessory dwelling unit and definitions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I would like to state just for the record formally for the hearing B that we have on the zoning map amendment, I have received the signed proffer statements. They came in late this afternoon, and so we will be entering them into the record formally at that time. So with that said, we are taking up the ADU public hearing first. As you are aware, you've been working for many months now, I think 5 months, on proposed changes to the ADU ordinance. This was referred over to the town council last month to see if we were working in a nature that they felt was supportive of their actions and representative of their actions. They did give the go-ahead and provided some additional feedback to us, which I did include in your staff report, so that you've heard that feedback from town council. We advertise this, of course, for tonight's public hearing. So the essential elements of what we are proposing to do to our accessory dwelling unit, we are looking to add an intent statement. So it's very clear and focused as to why we are adding this section to allow an accessory dwelling unit consideration on a lot in the residential district. Because typically, we have a lot density requirement in our residential districts that establishes what our threshold is for a density. And typically that's one house per, whether it be 5,600 acres, 5,600 square feet, excuse me, or some lesser legal non-conforming square footage allowance. So we wanted to make it clear why this was allowed by the town more than 3 years ago and adopted by the town, and we also wanted to ensure that it became clear to our public at large what our intent and hopefully goal that we are achieving through the creation and allowance of an accessory dwelling unit consideration is intended to happen for our town. With that said, we did want to provide some perspective back on all of this, and so in my staff report that was in your packet for tonight, I did give some clarity as to where that came from in the conversations that we had at the planning commission level to provide some background on that. And part of it is we wanted to emphasize that the ability to provide for an increased housing density allowance on a minimum lot size in the residential district is being offered under very specific conditions and criteria which were identified through the comprehensive plan to help bring additional housing units for long-term rental use to the market to help fill this identified void in our housing market. So we are proposing to add that, and that's in our text changes. Additionally, as we move forward, we were proposing to remove this as a conditional use permit process as well. It initially came in that way because that was felt the best way to help monitor and ensure conformance and compliance with our requirements. We've now had 3 years, roughly 3 years of doing conditional use permits applications for these things, and through that process, and was part of my recommendation to you, which you did agree with, that it really did not glean us any additional information on a particular lot or issues that should arise on a lot-by-lot basis for these, but rather if we just tightened up our criteria, we could handle this through a by right process. And that has a twofold benefit. It reduces the amount of time that the applicant is going through the process. That can take anywhere from 4 to 5 months of going through the process, the public hearing process, planning commission and town council, as well as reducing staff time's commitment to doing all of this work that comes with processing a conditional use permit application, both in terms of its initial review, then the staff reports that have to be written both for the planning commission and then for the town council, as well as all the legal advertisement that we have to do for this, including the adjacent property owner notification letters that have to go out. So there is a fair amount of staff time involved with the processing of each conditional use permit application, whether it be for accessory dwelling unit or for something else. My rough guesstimate and what I provided to you, that runs anywhere from 8 to 10 hours of staff time to make each application move through the system. And we have a lot of work flowing through our office right now, and anywhere we can help improve our operating conditions, we want to take advantage of that. And we do feel through a by right zoning permit that would be issued as part of this, that we can still track it appropriately, keep it in concert with our treasurer's office and their tracking responsibilities for tax collection purposes, and working in concert with the building official. We felt we could handle that. So yes, we are recommending the removal of this as a conditional use permit requirement and become a by right use with some improved criteria as part of this amendment. Additionally, I think the other substantial change that we did is we added some increased and improved definitions associated with the bedroom, with the kitchen, with the sleeping area, and one more, but I can't remember it off the top of my head.
Well, there was, and this may be on a different topic on your agenda, but there was also the increase in stay time.
I'm coming to that.
Okay,
So-
that's fine.
So we felt if we could improve those definitions, that would help eliminate some inconsistency that was occurring from the zoning side of the table versus the building side of the table. So if we make it really clear what the zoning requirements are, that would establish the threshold that we all have to follow on this, regardless of whether the building official has a slightly different review standard. The zoning standard will trump as to how we do the enforcement and the application of such. So with those elements pretty much, I think, settled down, the last conversation piece that the planning commission had through this process was, is the 30-day stay requirement sufficient? And then as part of that, we also ended up in a conversation, should we look at some other criteria such as residency requirements of the owners on one or of the other, one of the two units they would have to be residing in? I raise that because I don't want anyone to think we didn't consider these things. We actually did consider it. We did extensive research through Virginia localities as to what they are doing for their accessory dwelling units. And we came back to saying we think a 60-day requirement, minimum stay requirement, was necessary. We felt that really put home the message, these are not meant to be short-term rentals, they are not meant to be that 1 week or 2 week stay. They are meant to be a longer-term rental capacity available in our community. We are trying to make it clear these are not meant to be overflow for any family or guests that you have coming in. These are really meant to be truly rental, long-term rental units for this market, both whether it be for tenants, whether it be for employees that work within in the town limits or within the county limits. People who need that additional housing. It could be, you could rent it to a member of your family, but it needs to have a lease, and there needs to be a long-term capacity of 60 days or more shown in that lease. You may not charge your family member anything, and that's really generous, something my parents would never do for me, but that's okay. But with that said, we felt establishing an increase of that occupancy requirement would be essential to, again, underscoring our intent statement and driving home why we are putting this in play and why the town council was putting this in play. When we came back to the residency requirement, meaning if you are the owner of this property, should you have to live at least in the principal unit, and you could then lease out or rent out the accessory structure, or vice versa, live in the accessory structure and rent out the principal unit. We noted that there were many, many examples of people who own more than one property in this community and reside in this community. And we did not want to penalize those people who've chosen to invest multiple occasions here in this community. And we felt that was not something that we were prepared to recommend to town council at this point in time. We felt let's make these revisions, let's make the ordinance this way, and we think we are on the right track to get a better implementation of the ADU ordinance as intended.
One comment. It might be helpful. Good.
Speak up.
Oh. One comment.
Loud.
One comment. Help the audience understand that this does not trump pre-existing CUP implementations. It's from the point in time this thing is enforced forward.
From the moment town council may choose to make an adoption of any changes to the zoning text
Right.
ordinance,
Right.
and that's when it would become effective.
Right.
Yes,
And it's going to be effective for all future applications.
that's correct.
Thank you.
So, as I mentioned, we felt if we cleaned up some of the criteria associated with this, it would also help us. So, we've already mentioned the definition cleanup, we mentioned the process, and now the occupancy timeframe. We did a few minor other tweaks to this that we felt would help in the implementation of this. One being that ADUs need to have their own trash receptacles separate from the main house. We felt that it needs to be really clear that this is a separate structure from the main house, and they need to have their own elements associated with it, which includes the trash generation that comes from that unit should be collected in its own unit. And that also provides us another way of tracking and ensuring we're not seeing excessive overcrowding of that ADU. That will help us do a slight monitoring of that. Additionally, we did respond to the fact that we currently are requiring annual inspections from the building official of these units, and we felt we could change that around a little bit. So we have drafted, and I do have a draft available for everyone if you'd like to have one. Let me just pull those out for a second. An annual safety inspection checklist and affidavit. So if you can pass those down and provide them to the town council as well. This would be a document if we find that we are moving this direction with the zoning text changes. We would then require all new ones coming on board would have to complete this annually and would have to bring this into us in that mid-May. We were thinking around April 15th, no later than May 1, I think is what we put in the ordinance. So we would circulate this out, get them to complete this inspection checklist, return it to us, and then we still include the provision that the building official can go out and randomly conduct the inspection if he is still concerned with the answers coming back in, or the validity of what he's seeing or observing on the property or have heard along the way. So we have not relinquished the building official having the right to go in and do a safety inspection if one is called for, but we also trying to put some onus on the property owners to go through and check these things as well. We're asking them to do an affidavit and certify this information, so that we're putting some onus upon them to ensure their property is ready for this sort of responsibility. And then additionally, if you do adopt these ordinance changes, I will then craft a similar affidavit, ensuring zoning compliance, has happened and getting that submitted to us annually as well. So we are expecting, as part of this process, 2 affidavits will be coming in for every property involved, certifying this information to us and putting some, again, some onus on them that they acknowledge and understand these are the rules that they have to apply by. So I think that covers the main significant changes and why we made those changes. I hope it gives you additional information that everybody can understand. We had extensive, lengthy dialogue over the last 5 months on this particular issue. So, any questions from the commission?
Katie, just one quick administrative thing. Very bottom on the back page, take out the third D.
Yeah, I'll take all that out. I'll eventually add the
Okay.
signature lines and the affidavit
Yeah.
statement and the whole works. It's a draft, I just don't want you to forget. Yeah, I still gotta put those things
Okay.
in there. Yes, but thank you.
Sure.
This is not for discussing minor changes, we're gonna do that still at a later date, right?
No, it would be this evening.
Because did we ever approve it and send it to town council?
Yes, you did.
Yeah.
All right.
Yes.
Fair enough.
So,
You did that at your last meeting in April, and I went to the town council meeting in mid-April.
Okay, because I know we talked about that a
Or
little bit.
March, sorry, it was March, I'm off a month. I apologize.
We did talk about that a little bit, so, okay.
Yes.
All right.
Question. So initially, the building inspector will come and inspect it?
No.
Never.
Well,
Well,
when they're brand new, when a new structure is coming online, yes, there is an inspection that will happen. Typically, in most new residential constructions, most new constructions, but residential, you go to achieve a certificate of occupancy from the building official. As we learned from her during these deliberations, he would not actually issue a certificate of occupancy for an accessory structure of this nature, but he is going to create a new permit type from his office called a certificate of completion, which will equate to the same thing for the accessory structure, as it would for principal.
that he will issue
Yes, that he will issue.
after his inspection.
Yes, that is
Okay.
that's what will happen once you achieve the compliance inspection from him. He will issue a certificate of completion, which will be similar to a certificate of occupancy for a house. And that moving forward then serves as the basis of the elements that need to be in the house. The carbon monoxide alarms, the smoke detectors, the windows, the egresses, all of those things that he approved in the construction of that accessory structure.
any other comments from commissioners?
I just one comment. I know that we talked about this, to have this notarized. We need to make sure it doesn't put a burden on the residents, so we need to make sure as a town that we have notaries available to be able to do that. And I think we do,
I
right?
think we now have 3 notaries within the town, 4 notaries within the town hall itself.
Okay.
Okay, no comments from town council? Do we have any public comments on this? Okay.
Let me see if they signed up for this. So we can see here. One for this particular sheet. I think we have some written comments on this.
Do I have one? It says, I am Sam Jones and my wife and I live at 538 Monroe Avenue. Thank you for your work to clarify issues regarding accessory dwelling units in town. In reviewing the proposed language, it does not appear to adequately address the personal use of ADUs by the property owner. To address this issue, I suggest the following language be added at the end of the proposal. Nothing in this ordinance shall prevent or restrict the by right use of an accessory dwelling unit by the homeowner to house family members or family guests at the homeowner's discretion and with no time requirements. Thank you for considering this additional language. Sam Jones, 538 Monroe Avenue.
Is that it?
That is it.
Thank you. Okay, so you want to give a recommendation here?
So I am recommending that the planning commission consider, all the comments received. I would recommend that you recommend favorable approval to town council of the proposed zoning text amendment. And again, the document looks like this. And we are proposing additions in red. We have proposed to strike out certain items that are shown in a blue strikeout, sorry, black strikeout. So all of those are what we were proposing to council to consider amending the zoning ordinance by.
Just a point of order, with regards to the public hearings, are we going to go through, typically we'll have our public hearing, the applicant and discussion, but are we going to go through all the public hearings so that town council can get that out of the way? They don't necessarily need to sit and listen to all our arguments, although they'll probably be entertained and
probably is.
educated as they
Yes,
sit there.
yes, they are aware of that.
Okay.
So,
We were aware, but we didn't really have a comment on it. But I think it should be, we go through a public hearing, we dismiss, planning commission do the thing.
right. So, do I have a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion.
Second,
I haven't said it yet.
what she said.
I said, I'm gonna make a motion.
Well, you gotta spit it out, lady.
Well, I was just getting ready to, sorry. Let me spit it out now.
Go ahead.
I make a motion that the proposed zoning text amendments to section 4.2J, accessory dwelling units, and section 2.9 definitions be deferred. The planning commission was tasked with determining if the ordinance was working as intended, and that has not been accomplished. Further discussion and review is needed.
Do I have a second? Okay, I do not have a second. The motion fails. Do I have another recommendation from the commissioners?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we favorably recommend this adoption be sent to town council for their consideration for changes to section 4.2J and section 2.9 for definitions.
Do I have a second?
A second?
Discussion.
Yes. Yeah, one of the things that we really didn't start with, which I thought we should have, was what are the problems we're trying to solve through accessory dwelling units? We don't really know the current scope of the problem. When we first met, either Debbie Pocock or Jeb Brady said there were 12 of them in town. I don't know how many we have now, and I don't know how many are pending. So what is the problem? Also, by making it by right, that means every single person in the town who can meet setback requirements and those sorts of things can have an accessory dwelling unit. So if you have 500 houses in town, you could ostensibly have an additional 500 accessory dwelling units. Are we sure that's what we want? What would that do to our population, to expenses to the town, to the staff's time and ability to enforce this, to parking problems, to taxes? We really haven't looked at any of that. Also, it only affects RE, R1, R2, and CR zoning. That's the historic district. So it does not affect Bay Creek, which I understand Bay Creek is a planned unit development and things are different, but that does put the onus on the historic district to handle this particular problem. So should we perhaps look at including Bay Creek in some way to help with the problem. And what would that do to them? What would be the effect on them? We have some changes in our definitions. It's funny, if you look at this in depth, you'll see that all the criteria that's supposed to make this so much better for the staff to enforce, it's really not that different from what we already have. And I find that a lot of it is not doing what it needs to do. And let me get to where I want to be. All right. First of all, the statement of intent bothers me a little bit in that it says we want to add to the diversity of housing type to allow an increased density in specific zoning districts, as I mentioned. But the reason is to assist in meeting the housing needs of the town. Well, we haven't spelled out those needs. Are we looking for workforce housing? Are we looking for affordable housing? Are we looking for both? Are we looking for long-term vacation rentals? It's not clear what we're looking for. Again, one of the things you'll notice, people don't understand what an accessory dwelling unit is. And we already have a letter today speaking to this. And that letter said they want to make sure that we add that you can use them for your relatives anytime you want, regardless of the length of stay. That is not what they are for. You cannot do that. If you want to do that, then maybe we need to change accessory dwelling units to something else that provides that for you. But this does not provide this for you. This is really rental. Also, we should think about, do we want to make it so that your accessory dwelling unit can be rented long-term, but the house on the property can also be rented that short-term, and the owner live in England? And that's happening more and more. So that's something we need to decide. Maybe we do want that. That's fine, but we didn't discuss that. Let's see. Also, definitions. We had a really interesting discussion about definitions, and one of them was a kitchen, which was a kitchen. The definition is a sink and like a cutting board. A bathroom definition is a sink and a toilet. What's missing? A shower. And a sleeping area is not necessarily a bedroom. So when I think of bedroom, I think of walls, but a sleeping area doesn't have to have walls. If you look at the parking requirements for accessory dwelling units, it calls for 1 space per bedroom. So if you have a sleeping area of 3 bunk beds, you would be able to house 6 people in that accessory dwelling unit. How many parking spaces would you require? Is that 1 or 6? So there are things that we haven't found in the ordinance that are affected by this that we need to discover before we make the changes. There's really no big hurry to get this done. It should be done right, not fast. Let me see if I have anything else, and then I will pass it on. I think I'll pass it on. Thank you.
Further discussion?
But, I have 2 other comments. It's in this, correct me if I'm wrong, but, families are excluded, is that correct?
No,
It's not for families?
that's wrong.
Okay, then, all right. And the other one then is about, it shouldn't have the appearance of a house.
The exterior.
The exterior, right.
Yep.
And there are pictures of what is right and wrong that we can apply that to make sure that that isn't happening.
Well, that's captured through the Historic District Review Board.
I didn't know the historic district could speak to things in a backyard. Has that changed?
Yes,
No, they haven't always been able to do that.
Okay. So, So families can, that's good, okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? Okay, so we have a motion for recommendation and review and consideration to town council, a favorable consideration of recommending approval of the changes proposed to date to zoning text amendment 2022-01 to amend section 4.2, Bolegs J, and section 2.9, definitions of the Cape Charles zoning ordinance for accessory dwelling units. And we have a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, before you move on, we were explained as council that the staff report was going to be read, the public was going to be comment, and then we were going to move on. So the next two were just a public hearing for us, not your all's meeting. So the next two will go through it, and then you all can have your meeting as we adjourn.
Next is a public hearing on zoning map amendment 2022-01 application from Cape Charles Ventures LLC to conditionally rezone 238 Randolph Avenue, tax map number 83A3-1-625A from residential 1 to commercial 1 with proffers to limit the commercial activity of said proposed zoning.
Okay, so we have an application from Cape Charles Ventures LLC. As I referenced, we also received this afternoon from the applicant who signed voluntary proper statement. I have one for town council as well. I do want to make it clear, because again, this is not something that the town encounters often, are conditional rezonings and proper statements. So I do want to do just a little bit of education so everybody's clear on this. What the applicant has chosen to do is, instead of just petition for a rezoning of one zoning designation to another, they are proposing to do that, but conditions they are willing to self-impose upon themselves. We cannot require these of them. We have been working and having conversations with them to see if we can make them as clear as possible to address what are some of the identified issues and concerns with this proposal. And they have responded accordingly. And so that is the document we have before you as well. So the subject property is with a street address of 238 Randolph Avenue, which is the hotel itself. Within the proffers, they do include conditions that would provide benefit not only to 238 Randolph, but also to adjacent properties, including 235 Mason, 227, 231, 239, and 241 Mason would also are identified to receive some element of benefit through the proper conditions. They've also provided us the revised site plan, which has been handed out to each of you this evening on the dais that looks like this. I have highlighted a few of the changes from what was in the packets that were provided to you to what is presented to us today. So with that said, I do want to go through what are in the proffers that they're speaking on. Specifically, they're looking to utilize this property at 238 Randolph, which is directly behind the hotel itself, and to utilize it for deliveries of propane and other service-related deliveries for the hotel parcel and these properties of 227, 231, 239, and 241 Mason. I've been through this list with the applicant to make sure I understand which properties these are. Some of them may be tenants within the hotel itself, some may be adjacent to as well. We also been talking extensively about how trash collection and delivery of that and collection of said is occurring on the property, which is one of the strong issues that came forward that led to this coming forward to the applicant, both first as a violation component, and then is proposing to resolve it in several different means, the latest being this rezoning application. As part of it, he has also included in the proffer, per my suggestion to him, that he may still be interested in acquiring an adjacent property on 7 Strawberry Street. And if that acquisition should move forward and become part of the hotel proper itself, they have included reference to that as being also a beneficiary of this proper condition with the trash collection component But again, would not be a beneficiary if they do not acquire the property or bring it into the hotel use in some capacity. They also included a proper statement regarding the storage and staging of the golf carts and the charging stations associated with said on the property. And they've also included specific criteria and plan with landscaping and screening for this property as well. So to go through this, everyone is aware of this. There's many parcels associated with this. So the hotel itself is located here on Mason, and it is encompassed of a total of I think it's now 3 buildings that have been come together as a whole over many years. And the parcel in question for rezoning is the one behind it, sorry, right here, in this little white, what looks like white gravel, which it is white gravel, is the residential one that he is proposing to get rezoned. He has, and the town has known and has tacitly allowed it to be used for some of these expansion services of the hotel itself, both for the storage of items where the trash receptacles have been placed as well, and get rolled out onto Randolph Avenue for collection on the Tuesday collection days. Definitely as the hotel has continued to do well and have great occupancy rates and looking now for potential expansion in the near future, we can see that those services are going to have greater growth and demand, and we need to plan accordingly. And definitely we heard from some of the ancillary property owners that they were not in favor of that because they felt this is a residential zoning district. So this has brought this now to a head for the community to consider how best to address this. I did want to stress one of the elements that really structured this as a whole, and Mr. Gamino has indicated this in his application. Across that residential lot, there is an 8-foot easement already there to the town. And that easement occurred before Mr. Gamino took ownership of this lot, and it came as a result of the need to supply water and sewer services into these Mason Avenue properties. And so that was granted. It is a limitation on the development of that residential lot as well, so I want to make you aware of that. So, as I said, we have the site plan from him, so I want to spend just a minute walking ourselves through it. So, I think up to now, the trash cans had been placed over here at some point, somewhere down over here along the way, sometimes over here. And as I said, they get rolled out on Tuesdays and moved down here onto the sidewalk or onto the road of Strawberry Street, placed up there for collection. And I no fault of anyone, but just like everyone in town, if you don't immediately pick them up, sometimes they get blown over by the wind and maybe unseemly, unsightly, et cetera. So we recognize this is a real issue, and so this is one of the key concerns that we hope to address with Mr. Gamino in this process. So yes, through his proffers, we have worked to try and make this the most amenable plan possible moving forward, if this should get favorably approved by the town. So with that said, he had included in his initial application to the town that he would like to stage 6 golf carts. I know in one of the versions of the site plans, there was an increased number in the drawing. We asked him to bring it back to what he had initially asked for, and that is what is shown now and reflected in his proffer statement, space for 6 golf carts. He's also included that there can be bicycle parking there as well, which is, again, seems a complimentary and innocuous request at this point. Again, initially when you saw the site plan, we were looking at enclosure to house maybe up to 15 trash cans, trash receptacles. We felt there has to be a better solution to this. That's a lot of trash cans, and we recognize the full need for it as well. So yes, we have been working with him to preserve and explore other options here. So right now, we are looking at a dumpster of some sort further back on the property itself. There would be some type of enclosure to keep it screened to some extent, but also easily accessible by the trash collector. In this case, it is a third-party vendor that does the trash collection. That would not be part of the typical town collection responsibilities. Those would be costs incurred by the property owner to have the dumpster picked up at his own expense. So that relieves quite a few things for us, both how that looks visually for the adjacent property owners, as well as pulling it out onto the sidewalk. It doesn't have to be pulled onto the sidewalk at all, like the trash cans would have to be. This way it stays fully on this lot and further back on this lot, and it really is not imposing upon the entire neighborhood of so many trash cans. It's clearly in a residential area, that probably no other residence has that many trash cans available or used for their own property. As we mentioned, he has already proposed landscaping, and some of that has already moved forward without us requiring it or instituting it at this point. He has moved forward, trying to address some of these concerns. I did talk with him further this afternoon, after speaking with our building official, who is also affiliated with the fire department. We are gonna ask that one of those shrubs come out from the entrance area, because we think an 8-foot access or travel path onto that property is a little too narrow, especially for fire trucks. So if we're going to do this, then we need to have at least 9.5 feet clearance to allow a fire truck to get onto that lot properly. And with that, that means, I know he's also potentially proposing a little sign at the front of the property, so again, that also would move over on the site plan as well. So those are the specific changes from what was in your packet to what is now in the site plan that came in this afternoon. With that said, I do want to kind of walk through our considerations that we need to do for any rezoning application. And I did write about this extensively in our staff report. As I said, this all came about primarily from a violation complaint that came into our office that we have now been working pretty much since the end of last summer with the applicant to see how this can best be resolved. So, the things that we need to do when we look at a rezoning. We need to see how this is in respect to our comprehensive plan. It's our primary governing doctrine as to what our vision and intent is for the growth of the community, as well as the land use of all of our land within the town. The comp plan, I can't say is on point to this particular application, but I think it does have enough information in it. It sets a clear policy statement throughout the whole document, which is the fact that Cape Charles is a distinguished historical, residential, and commercial area district. And it repeats that throughout. There are numerous references and citations to this, and the need for our comp plan to recognize, preserve, and retain that district composition. And it is noted again and again that this is a late 19th and early 20th century character, and it's a key element in the town's interest and attractiveness to residents and tourists. It is important that the town's historic character be protected, not only for its intrinsic value, but also to continue to attract and expand tourism in Cape Charles. I do also offer a counterpoint that we have recognized that there needs to be a commercial base in our comp plan, and that is our downtown area, and it is the C1, or what everybody knows as Mason Avenue, as our commercial district. And tourism is a key component of our tourism economy and our economic economy. They go hand in hand, and yes, the district plays a role in bringing tourists here to our community and driving that sort of investment, both from a tourism perspective as well as sometimes converting into a long-term residential perspective of bringing new residents into our community as well. So there is a little bit of conflict that we can look to in our comp plan to say, well, there is some support to ensure we take steps to ensure the growth and vitality of the commercial district as well. But I don't think our comp plan has really addressed or identified that the C1 district may be at capacity and may be hitting issues that require us to revisit or rethink its planning. Its planning happened in the 1890s. We may need to rethink that now. I don't think there's been sufficient time nor investment spent through our comprehensive plan to address some of the issues that are now facing us today. And so that is where I am from a staff perspective, concerned that our comp plan does not fully support this proposal as it stands today. I recognize he's got real issues, and he will not be the only commercial entity coming forward to this community over the next 5 to 10 years.
And this particular property has history with in the past doing what's best for him, and in the present doing what's best for everybody, the town in particular. So he's changing behavior, for lack of a better term, and trying to do the right thing.
Through
That's
this or through some other behavior?
I'm sorry.
If I can I finish the
Oh, yes,
staff
sir.
report first?
Go ahead.
So then if you have additional questions, we can go through that.
Yes, yeah, go ahead.
So with that said, I've also now gone to our zoning ordinance, which is the next area we need to be looking at. And I've identified the statements of intent both for the R1 district, which is the subject of consideration this evening where this parcel is, as well as the district we would like it to go to, which is the C1 district. Again, what is unique about his request is he is doing it as a proffered conditional rezoning. So he is not saying he wants all of the uses allowed by right in the C1 district. He is willingly going to restrict what those uses will be. So I think that is a step forward in the right direction to help limit it. But again, I think this is a larger conversation that I feel needs to happen at the community level. Are we prepared and ready to adjust what has been known as a very clear definition of a district here? C1 is Mason for the most part. There's some expansion on some of the side streets of Pine and Strawberry. One other, but I can't. Peach, thank you. But it's been very, very small and restricted. And so if we're looking to look at an expansion, I know it does set us open that we need to be having this conversation throughout all of Mason and what happens. It did get dark in here, didn't it?
Yes, it did, yes. Yeah.
And what happens in the future when other properties are coming into these similar constraints of the use of their property that is contrary to their being able to do expansion, and an expansion that we may be supportive of.
Yeah.
I think we have all identified, and I've heard in very, very strategic meetings, the need for additional lodging spaces is vital for this community and needs to happen. But we are now limited as to where that can be placed and provided for us. So the other component that we need to do is how does this impact the adjacent properties? Clearly, as we have seen, there's an inclusion of the adjacent properties on Mason as part of this proposal willingly. I think they have shown that they also have this need and issue, and without a cooperative partnership with the hotel, they also would be struggling to provide these very services that would limit their operational capabilities. So from that end, from the Mason Avenue neighborhood, I think they are supportive of this. However, from the residential neighborhood on Randolph, and clearly the two properties that are most impacted by this request, we've had some concerns expressed. I do know we're gonna have read into the record correspondence from both the property owners, one not supportive of this, one now supportive of this. The property has changed hands from the prior owner who purchased it last summer. That has since sold sometime this spring, and we now have heard from the new owner who is telling us that they are supportive of this application. So there is concern about this as a whole. I have not reached out specifically to those across the street if they have any concerns. It was included as a public advertisement, so they do have the right hopefully to be here this evening to weigh in on this issue to make us aware of it. But I don't take this analysis lightly. Because once you do this, it's a long-term impact, and clearly the Randolph Avenue properties have lived as a neighbor to the Mason Avenue properties, the commercial activities. And they have learned about some of these things and have learned how to work and be cooperative partners with this. But as they continue to grow and expand, there are these ancillary side effects that I think are going to encroach upon their expectations. Definitely the trash issues and how that flows over into the residential neighborhoods, as well as some of the ancillary services that the hotel is seeking to offer its guests, that maybe they don't have to offer, but they're choosing to, and they are creating some of this ripple effect, meaning the golf carts, et cetera. So with that said, I'm happy to answer any questions, but ultimately, I cannot recommend this to you, just because I do feel it is not supported by the comp plan. And I felt if we could make some proposed changes to the comp plan and bring that forward to the community at large, and see if they are willing to support that as an amendment to the comp plan, I think I could get there, but I just can't get there today.
I have a question, and this may be a little off base, but hear me out. It goes to the text of the proffers. He wants to rezone.
Dennis, we can't hear you.
Oh, sorry.
Step forward.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question. It goes to the text of the proffers, the rezoning in particular. There are Well, let me state what I understand, and you can rebut accordingly. We have to be very careful of spot zoning. And I want to make sure that the proffers don't put us into a situation where we have to defend what is essentially spot zoning. Anything else other than that, I mean, I understand he's trying to meet a business need. That's fully understood. And he's doing the best he can with what he's got to, come to town with solutions. Even though we're still a little off the mark, we're heading in the right direction. You care to speak to that?
Sure. I actually do not view this as spot zoning.
Okay.
And I say this because when I brought you back to the aerial map of this corner. So commercial is all the way here on Mason, but there's also commercial that runs down Strawberry Street. So you're actually not that distant away from commercial zoning.
Okay.
Granted, yes, as I mentioned, that commercial zoning has stayed within the side streets, framing each block.
Right.
And it's only on 2 blocks that this occurs in your commercial corridor. So I don't view this really as split zoning or sorry, spot zoning. My brain is just tired. Spot zoning, I think it is consistent with what he's looking to do in a reasonable manner as best he could through the proffers.
Yep, okay.
You also have Pine Street too.
Right, Pine Street on the other side of this, I just don't have it on the map, you're right. So this block and then as Peaches we reference is also, it goes down the side street for that as well for commercial zoning.
Yeah.
So you're introducing, are you done, first of all?
Yes, it's up to questions
So
from the commissioners.
we'd like to hear from the applicant.
Are there any further questions of me at this point, or are we good to hear from the applicant?
Any questions?
Just one question about the back boundary of the lot on the diagram that you gave us. Is the lot line behind the dumpster? Just want to make sure that
The lot line, no, all of this is the residential lot.
could you do it up there?
Sure. All of this is the residential lot.
Okay, so that line behind the dumpster is a few feet off the dumpster
Is the residential, the residentially zoned lot today, yes, the lot in question.
Any other questions of the zoning administrator?
I do have one. If we decide not to rezone this, then what he's doing here is not allowable in that zoning district, so would he have to move all of this?
You don't decide if this gets rezoned or not, town council.
I
does.
know, I'm sorry.
And yes, we would continue to work with him to address these ongoing violations. If it is not rezoned, then the town will continue to work with him how best to address the violations.
Okay.
Yes.
So as you said, we need to rethink this.
I didn't say that.
Oh, yes, you did. You need, no, but
I said, I am not in a position as your staff to recommend, your favorable consideration of this at this point in
Right,
time,
yeah, we think-
because I do not think the comp plan fully supports it.
right,
So,
but in terms of this whole issue.
Well, she said pretty clearly that the comp plan was written with a different view of how land was being used than what this situation brought to the surface, largely, right? So we need,
Yeah.
it's a possible consideration for a tweak to the comp plan.
yeah.
Thank you.
All right.
Katie, in those 2 lots that are on the, we go back to the residential aerial, is it the 2 lots or a single lot? Because based on the zoning map, it looks like it's the 2 lots that are on the corner. Straight back almost is,
It's
way-
this, and I think, I don't know if it's all 3 of these.
I think it's either 3 or 2, just so you're aware, it's not
Right.
a single lot.
Right,
It's multiple
you're right,
lots.
there's some blocks, because there was a subdivision of this kind of parcel.
Correct.
All right, and I'm certain, this whole parcel ended up in a subdivision many, many years ago, and then created these individual lots there. So it gets a little funky, especially when we don't maintain our own GIS to know the specific parcels that were intended involved.
Exactly. I just wanted to make everybody aware that there was multiple lots there.
And again, this building here is 7 Strawberry Street, that is commercially zoned. So there's, again, we can see even the back half, which falls into this 3rd lot, is commercially zoned. I do know that, I haven't done the research fully on these 3. So the applicant is here, if you'd like
Yep,
to.
so if the applicant would like to come forward and please state your name and
Good evening, it's David Camino. I haven't met all of you, but it's nice to meet the ones that I haven't met.
Make sure you speak into the mic.
Sure, thank you. So first of all, thank you very much for, allowing me to make this presentation tonight. And thank you to Ms. Nunez. We obviously disagree on where we are right now, but I've said it before, she's an outstanding zoning administrator, and I've dealt with a lot of zoning administrators in my career as a developer. So she's very professional, and she has worked with me to the extent that she can, given her position that this request is not consistent with the comprehensive plan that the town currently has.
Can
And
you speak a little louder? It
Sure.
looks like people aren't able to hear you.
Okay, sorry. And insofar as your question a moment ago, where you asked, where does this leave us with respect to, what is if we don't do this? Well, that's the question really at hand, because I have a notice of violation and corrective order that was served on me today, which is part of this process. I understand that. But this is this indicates to me that basically if the property's not rezoned, then from February 10th moving forward, then I am in violation, and I'm going to be sanctioned as such and fined as such, and that will continue until such time as I alleviate these issues. And my dilemma is I can't alleviate the issues and operate the hotel. I need garbage delivery taken off the hotel to operate the hotel, and I need propane delivery to operate the hotel. The Cape Charles Coffee House needs propane delivery to operate. The businesses that we allow to use for trash, they need trash services. The fire department needs access to the back of the building. But before I actually get to the substance of what I'd like to say to you, beyond that, is the first thing I want to do is, and I'm sorry if this makes you uncomfortable, Mrs. Loomis, I just want to apologize to you, because I had put in my original submission that Mrs. Loomis was not opposed to my rezoning this, and I'm an attorney by trade, and I certainly wouldn't put a public document out with a misrepresentation like that. And I sincerely thought that, in fact, you were not opposed to this. I've had lots of conversations with her about lots of different things, and if I was confused about that, I apologize profusely. I absolutely did not mean to misrepresent that to anyone, and I'm sorry I did that, so please forgive me. So what I'd like to first say is that the report that you've received indicates that Ms. Nunez can't support this because it's not consistent with the comprehensive plan, and I understand that. But what I would say, sort of more importantly, at the conclusion of that report, she indicates, basically, there's going to be a reckoning that the town needs to make. There needs to be further study about the interaction between the commercial district and the residential district, and this must be studied further, and we may wish to create a new zoning district to address this situation in a uniform and comprehensive way. Well, I agree with that, yes. The question is, what do we do in the meantime? Because what I've proffered to do is what I would respectfully submit is put forth a framework for what maybe this new zoning district might, this light commercial district might look like. Because we are doing everything that we reasonably can do to mitigate the commercial activity that is necessary for the operation of the business. And that would be the sort of the template, I would think, that the town would look to if, in fact, this unique situation presented itself again. And I can't emphasize enough that this is a unique situation, that I've been operating this way for 10 years without a single complaint until an investor bought a house a year ago and renovated it and flipped it. And they lodged a complaint. So for 10 years, there has been no complaints from people in the Wilson building. There have been no complaints from people across the street. There have been no complaints from my neighbors, because we have been super, super conscientious about the fact that we are doing some activities there that can be characterized as commercial. So one complaint, and that is really why we're here, what created this, but we do have to resolve this. I recognize that, and I recognized it when I spoke with Ms. Nunez, but I didn't know what the solution was, and I recognized it when I decided that I was going to purchase 7 Strawberry Street and try to expand the hotel. So I would submit, first of all, that yes, she can't recommend to you that you allow this rezoning, because it's for the sole reason that it's not consistent with the comprehensive plan, with the caveat that, in fact, we are going to have to, the town, in planning and zoning, is going to have to address this at some point. And I would submit that what we have proffered is the absolute best way that we can do a light commercial there. So where that leaves me then is, how did I arrive at this situation? And, I purchased the hotel and the lot, but the lot actually, the county and the town allowed that residential lot to be split many years ago into a 32-foot lot and an 8-foot lot. And that 8-foot lot was used exclusively as an alley. So there has been a sort of de facto use of that lot to service Mason Avenue for 20 or 30 years at least. And when I took it over, I consolidated those two. And actually, one thing that Ms. Nunez stated that was not correct, that she's probably not aware of, that 8-foot easement, I granted that to the town. I gave that to the town because the Cape Charles Coffee House was about to close because they needed a sewer line. So I installed a sewer line across my property and down that alley for the coffee house and the town to keep that business. And I did so because I had no intention of ever developing that lot, because I couldn't develop the lot. So I've got a lot that's got a sewer lateral on it, an 8-foot easement for the town, a 1,000-amp transformer that the town allowed me to put on the lot, and a 1,000-gallon propane tank that services the hotel. I recognize that the comp plan talks about retaining the historic character of the residential district, but you can't recreate the historic character of the residential district on this lot. The lot's future is vacant. I can't build a house there, nor can anyone else. I can't sell it because it's got a transformer on it, it's got a propane tank in it, and the fire department needs to be able to get to the back of Mason Avenue. I recognize that there is an impact on the people that live next to me. I understand that, and I'm doing absolutely everything I can. And for 10 years, I didn't think that there was any problem. I didn't think that Mrs. Loomis had a problem with it. I didn't think anybody in the Wilson building had a problem with it. Now, I think a lot of people are under some of the people that have written letters in opposition to this that live in the Wilson building are under the impression that somehow the fact that I'm going to buy 7 Strawberry Street and build 40 feet up, it's got something to do with this lot. It doesn't. They're two distinct issues. I am merely trying to operate a business in in the most harmonious way I possibly can and have had for 10 years, and have, brought, you would be amazed, almost 80,000 people to the town of Cape Charles, which equates to about $7 to $10 million in gross revenue to the town, not just the hotel, to the town. I can't operate without that lot. I don't know what to do without the lot being rezoned. It's not hyperbole. That's really the fact of the matter. And I am narrowly tailoring this request and trying to make it so that I can get along with my neighbors and I can operate the business and I can help the other Mason Ave businesses as well. So I would really implore you to please look favorably upon this rezoning, because candidly, I don't know what I'm going to do if it's not rezoned. I don't know how to operate the business otherwise. I'd be happy to answer any questions that anyone has.
Commission have any questions of the applicant?
Are you saying that there are two things you absolutely must have, and that is propane and, I'm sorry, what was it?
Trash.
Trash. So you must have two things.
I must have two things.
Okay.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
We do have several speakers signed up. The first is Steve Loomis.
Steve Loomis, please state your name and your address, and you have 3 minutes.
Absolutely. My name is Steve Loomis. I live at 628 Washington Avenue. First and foremost, thank you all for allowing us to have this meeting tonight. I want to speak against rezoning. I don't think anybody else in this room would want to have a commercial lot in between two residential lots, first and foremost. That's the main point I want. Now, I'd like to try to educate everyone on that property and that lot and that block. Because there's only one other person in this room, and that's my mother right there, that knows more about that block than I do. The 8-foot easement has been there since the 1924 Sanborn lots. You can look that up on, right down there at the town hall. And that easement was there to get to the back of those buildings to pick up trash. All my life, that lot, that easement, down behind Watson's was an easement. And then at the end of the block by the town property that goes in behind the Parsons building was an easement that was used for trash, propane, fuel oil, coal, whatever was needed for those businesses. Just to give you a little history of how all of that was used. The corner two lots are commercial. That was a hotel from way back. That goes back probably to the 1910 Sanborn maps. So I just wanted to give you a little history of that property. And that 32 foot, there was a house on that. It was a duplex with a downstairs and upstairs apartment. And when the trash truck went down there, it took the siding off the house just about every time it went down there. and that's the truth. There was no setbacks for that house whatsoever. The mirrors scraped it every time it went down there. And the poor fella that had the property, he had railroad ties that big down his backyard to try to keep them out of his yard to get in and out. So yes, it is very tight to get the fire trucks and all that stuff in there. Firefighter for 40 years. Started right here at Cape Charles Fire Company. I understand the importance of every bit of that. But I really just don't want to see us going to the point of having commercial lots in between residential lots. Mr. Gamino is in a pickle. I don't disagree with that. But the back of that building that he uses for his patio, courtyard, thank you, was where the trash was picked up. The town trash truck went back there twice a week. So as far as the noise in the alleyway being used as as long as the alleyway, I mean, it's been like that for as long as I can remember. So my main goal was just to give you a little bit of history of the area. My mom will probably want to probably help me with that a little bit too. But I'm asking as a town resident not to switch it from R1 to C1.
Time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is Chica Galabar.
Okay. I am Chica Gullibart, and I live at 245 Mason Avenue in Cape Charles. I'm here to support Miss Judy Loomis and her wishes for a residential lot beside her house. I have lived and own a condo on the 4th floor of the Wilson Building for 10 years and have 2 windows facing Miss Judy's property. Beautiful house and land. One of the most beautiful houses and land in Cape Charles. The residential lot that is currently being used as commercial property is beside Judy's house and close to her windows. I have walked by those lots and is not in keeping with the town's appearance. And every vehicle going up and down that driveway causes noise in her windows day and night. I support Mrs. Judy, who is most affected by the use of this lot, and the town should also. Miss Judy knows well the history of the lots, having lived there for many, many years. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cynthia, you want to speak on this one? I'm going to say no.
Pardon?
Cynthia, Emrich, did you want to speak on this particular hearing? I don't think so.
No, thank you, no, please.
June Perlberg?
No, thank you.
Okay. Is it John Dolph?
Yep.
Good evening. My name is John Dolph. I am the general manager of the Hotel Cape Charles since 2017. As you know, limited commercial use on Lot 238 Randolph is critical to the operations of several businesses for many years. When I started at the hotel, I had no idea it was a residential lot. We'll get into that in a moment. We share access with the Cape Charles Coffee House, the Almeida Cafe, Cravings, Eastern Shore Popcorn, and, you know, I didn't include the credit union on there too, because they have to have hot water, and they get that hot water from the propane tank that's located on this lot. So all those businesses, anybody that has water has to have hot water, and they have to have a bathroom. They have to get that from the propane that comes through that lot. Additionally, the hotel electric service is serviced by a large electrical transformer box and a 1,000-gallon propane tank. When that equipment was permit and approved by the town, the property in question was essentially approved for commercial use. It'll never be used for residential use. There will never be a house there. These utilities and the town's 8-foot easement makes it impossible to realistically use the lot for residents. Upon approval, 5 businesses will continue to operate and 6 to 10 parking spaces will be available on Mason Avenue because golf carts will be housed in the lot as they have been for multiple years. And we already know what parking's like on Mason Avenue. Lastly, my professional perspective. I've worked in many hotels in hospitality for more than 20 years. I've managed Hilton's, Sheraton's, Marriott's, Holiday Inns. I was a travel consultant for Deloitte and Touche, and I've met hundreds of hotel owners, and I've been in thousands of hotels. I think at some point we have to give a little bit of credit where credit's due. This is a very nice hotel. And if you haven't been in it, I'd be more than welcome to show you around. This is a very nice hotel. Small towns like Cape Charles don't get very nice hotels. Small towns like Cape Charles get something like what's in Worcester, Ohio, or what's in Duck, Arkansas, or what's in Driggs, Idaho. You don't get a $300 night hotel. So let's keep in mind about that. These towns would do anything to have a quality accommodations like the Hotel Cape Charles. I've never encountered an owner who's been as aggressive to provide a superior product. The financial commitment and the sweat equity that I've seen here is unheard of. The work that we do when we shut down for the season, the financial commitment is comparable to what a corporate hotel would do every 7 years, and we do that every 12 months. Shutting down this work in the off-season has become more about minimizing guest impact than the hotel's own financial well-being. So we're more worried about that impact. Meanwhile, it's all paid off. All the work that the Gaminos have put into it, the work that I've put into it, has all paid off. April, last month for the hotel, and I'm sure for many businesses, was comparable to June 2018. And if you remember June 2018, we were all running around cutting ribbons with Governor Northam. So
Thank you.
please keep that in mind. Thank you very much.
Judy Loomis. Or we can read your written comments if you'd like us to.
My name is Judy Loomis, and this is my first time public speaking in my many, many years. So please bear with me. I didn't bring any notes, but I feel that I do need to tell you that I own the 4 lots, the 2 commercial and the 2 residential that lead up to Mr. Gamino's lot. My house is on the one next to that lot. I've lived there for 50 years. And prior to that, I have lived 2 other places on that same block. So, as my son said, I'm very familiar with the commercial area and the residential area of that block. When Mr. Gamino bought the hotel, all of the services, I guess you'd call it, were at the back of the hotel behind my lot. Later, he bought the lot that we're referring to, the residential lot, put in a courtyard behind the hotel, and has proceeded to, in a gradual way, use that lot as he needed to for the services of the hotel. And he is correct. I have not complained. I can see that expanding the hotel, he has needed more space for things, but it's gotten out of hand as far as I'm concerned. How are the golf carts a necessity for the hotel? It's gotten too much a part of the hotel, is what I'm saying, and it's going to continue to do that, I believe, if you zone it commercial. And that being said, I just don't think that that lot should be commercial between the whole rest of the block is residential, except for the 2 lots that I own on the corner, which are on Strawberry, where that is a residential section. It always has been. So I don't know what the answer to the problem is, but I am asking that you not zone that lot commercial.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have no one else signed up to speak, but we do have several written comments that have come in.
To whom it may concern, we just purchased the property at 234 Randolph Avenue. After speaking with the hotel manager, we wanted to let you know that we have no problems with them using their lot for golf carts and trash cans. Sincerely, Sherry Landon. Dear Planning Commission and Town Council, I own and operate Chuckletown Productions, a boutique souvenir store located at 237 Mason Avenue on the ground floor of the Hotel Cape Charles. I've been there for 8 years. My store is one of several mentioned in the application as relying upon the use of 238 Randolph for trash removal. Our trash cans do not fit in our store and cannot move through our store. If they did, they would occupy several parking spaces on Mason Avenue. We rely on a few very basic support services, but reasonable trash removal is a critical component of maintaining a busy retail establishment. 238 Randolph has always been available for these critical to business activities and has been impeccably maintained by the applicant during my tenure there. For these reasons, I wholeheartedly support this application. Lori Klingel, owner, Chuckletown Productions. To whom it may concern, my name is Eddie Campo. I own the Alameda Cafe on Mason Avenue. I'm writing this to show my support for approving the variance requests made by Hotel Cape Charles. Myself and 4 other Mason Avenue businesses rely on their alley for trash disposal, propane, and loading and unloading without adding to the traffic on Mason Avenue. Denying their request would have a negative impact on the successful operation of my business as well as multiple others. Thank you for your time. Eddie Campo. Good afternoon. My husband and I own a condominium in the Wilson Building, Unit 203 on Mason Avenue. We purchased the property many years ago, as so many others. We fell in love with the charm and friendliness of the town and spend as much time here as possible. It has recently been brought to our attention that a property owner, Mr. Gamino, is requesting a zoning change from residential to commercial for the property he owns on Randolph Avenue. We strongly oppose to the encroachment of commercial property within the residential area. If this is approved, it will set precedents for other buildings in the area, and we believe this to be in conflict with the comprehensive plan for Cape Charles. Thank you for your careful consideration of this important matter. With kind regards, Amy Townsend and Reverend Clark Cundiff. Dear Katie, Planning Commission and Town Council, I am writing in regards to the request to reclassify the zoning of the property located at 238 Randolph Avenue. As a native Eastern Shoreman, I have watched how the town of Cape Charles has transformed itself back into the days I remember growing up as a child. The historic district is such a wonderful, lively place for friends and family to gather. Having watched the tide turn in Cape Charles over the last several years, I caution turning a property that is located in the residential historic into something other than residential. Doing so will set a precedent for other residential properties in the historic district. And once the door is open, it's open. I strongly encourage a no vote to this request. Thank you for your service to the town, and thank you for allowing me the opportunity to voice my concern. Karen Dewar Potts, 502 Fig Street. As a full-time resident of Cape Charles and the family member of a full-time resident of the Wilsons Building, I'm concerned about the news that I've heard regarding the possibility of building a 4-story expansion of the Hotel Cape Charles on top of the Bettis building. First, there is the close-to-home worry about covering residential windows of those with north-facing condos in the Wilsons and the added parking issue on Strawberry Street, which is already often too full for residents to find a spot. But more perhaps importantly, in the long term, is the concern of residential space being possibly rezoned as commercial, and the precedent that sets in town as we struggle to find places for the people who work in the town and county to live even now. I would urge the town to think very carefully about the encroachment of new commercial property within the residential area of historic Cape Charles. Given the information I've gathered so far, I am opposed to this proposed zoning. It does not sound to me to be in the best interest of our town culture. Thank you for your time and consideration. Best, Margaret Van Cleef, Tazewell Avenue. To whom it may concern, I am in favor of the request by Hotel Cape Charles to have the empty lot behind the hotel rezoned to use for golf cart parking and trash can storage going forward. Hotel Cape Charles has been a boon to this town, and I think we should do whatever we can to help them operate the business in the best way possible. Thank you for your consideration. Patsy Harris, 630 Carousel Place. I support the hotel's proposal to rezone the empty lot behind the hotel on Randolph Avenue. We rely on access from that lot for utilities. Sincerely, Eastern Shore Popcorn, Alana Smith. And that is it.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I didn't get to sign up. May I address?
No. Sorry. So, in order to accommodate the town council, can we just go into the next?
We will table further action on this, and we'll come back to it later this evening. We will go on to the next public hearing and move that forward.
So the next public hearing is on conditional use permit 2022-002 application from Cynthia, Emrich, and Charles Van Dyke at 420 Randolph for an accessory dwelling unit permit after the fact.
Yes, as listed in my staff report, they are seeking an after-fact permit for a 548 square foot accessory dwelling unit, which was constructed in 2018/2019. Our office received a complaint and investigated and determined that the accessory structure met the definition of an accessory dwelling unit and that it was being rented on a weekly basis in conjunction with the main house on the property. In working with the applicant's property owners to resolve the violation, we reached a corrective action plan to have them file an application for a conditional use permit and bring the property into compliance with the elements of the zoning ordinance. I have recognized that this occurred during the transition time when the town was crafting and adopting the accessory dwelling unit ordinance, and the applicant has responded swiftly in cooperation with the office to correct this violation. I do want to make you aware that we did agree to allow any confirmed reservations for the summer of 2022 to be honored, and we have obtained a list of these bookings in our office, and the applicant has agreed that no other bookings will be allowed that does not comport with the ordinance requirements. So at this point in time, we would like you to review the application and hopefully consider a favorable recommendation to the town council of this conditional use permit for an accessory dwelling unit after the fact at 420 Randolph Avenue. And as I mentioned, if there are any questions for me, if not, we do have the applicant here if you do need to hear from her, Ms. Emrich.
Any questions?
I don't have a question, but I have a comment, because earlier we talked about this going forward at this point in time in the future. This is prior to this.
Right.
That's correct.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Your zoning ordinance has not changed at this point, so we are still obligated to enforce the one that's on the books today.
So would the applicant like to come?
I'm happy to answer questions, but I'll let our application speak for itself. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any public comments on this?
Jude, did you want to speak on this one? So we had, no one signed up and we received no comments on this.
Okay, so
So I'd like to make a motion that we close the public hearing portion.
do you have okay, we have a motion to close the public hearing in a second. Any discussion?
Just a question. On the conditional use permit accessory dwelling unit checklist, it's very specific about the length of stay. On the letter
That's
from,
for the future.
pardon?
That's for the future.
Yeah, we can talk about that.
Oh, you all want to leave?
Yeah. Yes.
Just saying, it's for the future.
Sorry.
Yes. Yes. All right, so we have a motion to close the public hearing in a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Can I get a motion to close the council portion of the public hearing?
So moved.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Thank you all.
Thank you.